So let's have a quick overview of the columns and arches part of balloonbuilder.com. So the main control areas are in the top menu and the side menu. So over here we have, for example, organic button. By default it's disabled, but you can always enable organic mode in standard column or standard arch mode. Also we have here balloon size indicator that shows the size of the balloons, which are defined from design and size menu or the size pattern menu. And if you want to see the size of the whole column or arch, you can enable dimensions. And also if you want to see the colors as labels, so you can actually, for example, if you print the picture in black and white, you can see the numbers, so you can identify the colors based on the color labels. And then we have export menu, where you can save and load design, or you can export the design images, list of balloons, whatever. And then you can export 2D image or 3D image, just what you see on the page over here. Export this one or this one. Then you can change the mode, 2D and 3D, or just 3D. Also we have undo, redo buttons over here. So if you, for example, accidentally color one balloon that you don't need to change the color back in the menu and then recolor that one. You can just click Ctrl Z or just undo button from here. And also if you have moved the 2D design and you want to bring that back, there's a recenter 2D button over here or over here. So if we click over here, the design goes back to center and it also resizes back to normal size. And then you have theme, either light theme or dark theme. And then you also have tooltips. So I go back to light menu, light theme, and then enable tooltips. So when I go above control, for example, theme, it says switch between light and dark color themes for the interface. And all the controls, all the relevant controls are showing tooltips. So for example, over here, this button is mostly for small screens and mostly for mobile use, but you can also hide extra controls from the top menu if you want, just by clicking hide extra controls, and it will hide one row of controls over there. So in desktop view it's not really needed, but in mobile you may need it sometimes. Then on the side menu over here we have a button. This is also mostly meant for mobile view, but you can toggle the menu, so it actually hides all the menu titles. But this is also, it gives a little bit more room on smaller screens. So on mobile you can hide the menus if you don't need them, then just click back so you get them back. And over here, we can choose the design, columns, link column designs, and then arches, different sizes for arches, and then straight-sided arch. And then this is mostly for organic, but you can also use it in non-organic mode if you set, for example, 30 layers, and then enable custom path. So you can see that the shape of the column goes goes to something else. And over here you can enable to edit path points. And then you can see the points. These are knots, so you can move these around and change the shape to whatever you want. Or you can choose some shape preset that are defined over here. There are, for example, numbers. So let's zoom in a little bit. So you have number 3, and for example, number 8. Over here you can see that there's some overlap with the balloons in non-organic mode, but it is mostly designed to be used for organic mode. All these pre-designed paths are mostly meant for organic mode, but you can use them also in non-organic mode. But let's increase the number of balloons a little bit. So then if we go to organic mode, the overlap is mostly gone and balloons will be placed around the shape nicely. What else? We have some arches, star arch. Let's go back to normal size. So star arch shape and heart, different kinds of curves that are mostly meant for the organic mode. So that's the custom path. And then the rainbow arch and also ring column, which means duplet square pack. Let's take number of layers to small number. So this is duplet square pack layers on top of each other. And if you are playing with large design with hundreds or thousands of balloons and you feel that the 3D view is going to be a little bit laggy, you can always enable preview mode. So it's much faster to do some modifications in 3D. And then when you export, even if you are in preview mode and you click export and export 3D image, it will actually automatically enable the high quality mode and include all the shadows and so on. So this is for if you want to, for example, adjust the placement of large sculpture in the picture, and then you can always enable the preview mode and then go back to high quality mode and, for example, rotate the design. But that's more for low power PC or mobile phone. Okay, let's go back to column mode and choose over here. You have the controls for balloon size. So the basic size for balloons in the column. If you only have one size, then this is the one that's used. For example, 20 centimeters. The size of the design in 2D does not change, but if you enable the dimensions and then change the size of the balloon, then you see that the numbers are changing. So the size of the actual design is changing. The number of layers, and then balloons per layer. So you can 4, 5, or 6 balloons per layer in the normal standard column. And for Lincoln designs and for the ring column designs, you can have more than 6 balloons per layer. That's mostly the design and size menu. Then size pattern. There are some pre-designed size patterns that you can use. For example, alternate. So you have 2 sizes, A and B. So you can, for example, have 15 centimeters and 25 centimeters. And actually changing the number of balloons per layer to 4, so it's more realistic. So you can have this kind of design. And then there's taper. These two designs over here are using size A and size B. So for taper, it's the minimum size on top, let's say 10 centimeters, and size A at the bottom, let's say 40 centimeters. So you get a cone shape like so. And you can have pencil, light pole, different kinds of column shapes, champagne bottle, a beer bottle, another bottle, bowling pin, and just like the quite popular 3-ball column. I call it ball column because of the ball kind of shapes in the column body, but you can name it whatever you want. Then for the arch, we have also ball column design that's just increases the number of layers to 63, and if we go to arch mode, we'll actually use that size pattern over there also. Let's go back to column and uniform. I'll change the number of layers back to something reasonable. And since we were in 3-ball column mode, there was a top balloon defined over there. So now the top balloon is enabled. So over here we have enable top balloon. So we can either enable or disable it. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see also in 3D. So top balloon. And over here the top size is defined. And let's change the size of standard balloons to 20 centimeters so it's more realistic. So top size is now 60 centimeters, quite standard column sizing. And if you want to adjust the like how far away from the column the top balloon is, you can do that by changing this top overlap. For some balloon designs, it's necessary to use that one. There are default settings for these pre-made patterns that should mostly be okay, so there should not be need for adjusting. But if you change the type of the top balloon to, let's say, okay, we have latex round. Let's zoom in a little bit over here so you can see. So basic round latex balloon, but you can also include a bubble cover, so it increases the shine. So with white, it's not so visible, but anyway, it's there, so you can add a bubble cover on your latex balloon. So basically a bubble balloon on top of latex. Then there's foil star. So you can, for example, the star, you can move it up and down to place it in a nice position over the column. You also have a small star if you want to create like a Christmas tree or something and you don't want to place a big star on top of it. So you can also use a small one, 18-inch foil star. And then there's also Linky star. We'll be adding more and more of these foil balloons, but now there are only few options for the top balloon. And then star point and exploding star also. So for the exploding star, you can control the number of star points over there. So you can have 3. And then if you click randomize, it will position those balloons automatically so that they are not overlapping. So I guess like 7, 8, 9 is probably the usual number of start points. And then now if you look at over here, you can then adjust the height. So I want a little bit more overlap. So it will be a little bit closer to the latex balloons. So every time you click over here, it will automatically recalculate also the shape of the exploding star. So now it's quite nicely fitting in there. And then the last options are 260 balloons, a spray of 260s. It take a little while to update the 2D image, but over here it is. So for these, you can also adjust the length of individual 260s by just changing the size to 45, for example. And then all the top balloon options are clear. I will not go to center support. This is something it requires a little bit more work still, but you can basically remove the middle balloons and create, for example, a helium balloon just without the balloons in the middle. So you can use either center pole, so it's like a column without center balloons, or ribbon, so it's a helium balloon, or spiral 260. But we can take a look at those later. Then paint tools. So over here you have the color pattern for the body of the column, and also you can define the number of colors. So for the basic column, now we have 5 balloons per layer, so you can have up to 5 colors. So if you increase the number of colors above 6 or above 5, the number of colors is not changing to higher than 5, because spiral has only 5 possible colors. So we put this to 5. You have spiral, you have reverse spiral, layered. So over here, now when you are in layer mode, you can actually have more colors than 5, so you can go up to 7 colors. And then we have in out, so this requires a little bit more layers so that they actually can create the correct pattern. Let's just change this to uniform so it's more clear. So now you see that when we have enough layers, you get a symmetrical pattern that goes first one way and then the other way. This is more meant for arts. For example, if we take this to like so you can see that in-out pattern, and then out-in, so it just reverses that to another way. And also there's a star pattern, and some of these are meant for Lincoln, larger Lincoln designs, and then rainbow star is for the rainbow arts. Okay, and then we have lighting settings over here where you can add background image for the 3D. So for example, let's first make a nice design. So over here for the colors, you can choose, for example, reflex, gold, and standard black. Okay, let's just use standard black for all the others, and then you can see easily that the actual star pattern is now behind the arch. So over here you can just rotate the pattern to bring the star to the front side, like so. And right now, since we have 5 colors, we are using colors C1 to C5. So these are the colors that are now used in the pattern. And if you want to color manually something, you can just choose manual color. Let's go to white and enable manual mode, and then just color whatever balloons you want to color. Just be aware that if you just color the front side, nothing happens for the back side. So if, for example, now if we click and look at the back side, you can see that these are all black balloons are still black, so they are not changing to white. So if you want to have the exact number of balloons for each color when you export the design, you need to make sure that you have taken into account the front side and the back side. So that's it. And then if you want to remove all the manual colors, you can just click clear manual and you go back to pattern colors. So all the manually colored balloons will be removed. Okay, and then for this one, I didn't explain probably yet, but you can drag and zoom the 2D image. By default, if you scroll over here, nothing happens. But in 3D view, if you scroll, it will zoom out and in. In 2D image, if you want to scroll the mouse and zoom in and out, you need to enable the mouse zoom, move and zoom. Then you can use just mouse scroll to zoom in and out. And if you click the reset zoom, it will always go back to default zoom level. And okay, so now if we go back to the 3D background image, so now if we zoom in, increase the size of the background image, so it fills the whole canvas nicely. And then you can just, let's go to preview mode, so you can move the 3D design, zoom out a little bit and place it to a nice position over there. Then you can enable the HQ and readjust the shadow if you want to have it against the wall, so the shadow will be thrown on the wall. Or you can also just disable the wall shadow and then move it to the center of the space and turn it around. If you want the shadow to, in this case, the light is coming from this way. If you want to rotate the shadow, you need to rotate the environment. Oh, sorry, the sunlight. So you can rotate the horizontal light direction, and it will rotate the shadow and also the direction where the light comes to the actual design. So this is the horizontal direction, and then also vertically, if you go down, the shadow gets longer, and if you go up, the shadow goes more directly under the arch. And if you disable sunlight, you will also lose the shadow. So sunlight is the one that actually brings the shadow in. So if we would have shadows enabled for all the lights, that will cause huge lag. So for the usability, we have only enabled the light for the sunlight, the shadow for the sunlight. But then you can also enable different lights. So we have actually environment light, which helps a lot in bringing the, just move the light so a little bit more light over there. So for the environment, especially the metallic colors and reflex colors, they need to have an environment to actually get shine from more than one light. So it gives a more realistic view on how the reflex balloons actually look. So if we take this down and take the sunlight down, you can see that basically everything is just black. Ambient light is the one that controls the overall lighting level, but this will, if we just set this to something and then increase the ambient light, it will just make the colors, you see the colors, the black one goes gray. So it just basically lightens the colors. So a little bit of ambient light is good. So it gives correct lighting. So the default lighting settings over here are something that are quite good in most cases. So you don't usually need to adjust these a lot, but if you want, you can play with those. So then what else we have? We have a left spot. So you can enable the left spotlight, and now the power is 0, so it's not visible. I will take down the sunlight a little bit, so the effect of the spotlight is more clear. So when we increase the power of the left spotlight, we should see some light over here. So now if we increase this, you can see that the amount of light coming to the arch from the left side increases a lot. And then you can also play with the direction of the light. And if you want to see where the light is coming from and where it's directed, you can actually also enable the show light cones. So I will take the background image away from there now, so it's more clear. And then if we go back to the upside, now if we start to adjust so now this is the actual position of the left spotlight. So it is 5 meters away from the arch. So you can bring the distance closer to the arch. And you can also rotate the place of the light. And you can raise it higher, lower. And you can change the angle, so meaning how wide the light is. So bring it down so it's really sharp spotlight, and then if you increase it, you will have more broader light. And if we go back to here, and I will now take the light cone off and show you how the colors are defined. So RGB, basic RGB lighting. So you can just, if you take the red color away, you can see that the light is bluish green. And if you take the blue out, you can see that the light is bright green. And go back to red, increase this to 255, you get yellow. And if you want to increase this a little bit, for example 50, you will get a little bit grayish tone into the color. So now like so. So it's more neutral. But you can adjust the settings over here. So RGB, and then you can also add white. So if you want to, for example, have, let's see, we'll put this to 0 and then use only red light. But if you want to change the light to pink, let's just increase the amount of white so it gives a more lighter red tone. Maybe easier to see if we change some of the colors to white, so you can actually see how the color of the light changes the color of balloons. So it's a little bit bright now, so we can also decrease the power a little bit. So over here you can see that it's clearly reddish, pinkish tone. And now it's completely red. Okay, and so we have the similar spotlight also on the right side. So left side, right side, over here. So you can play, for example, red over there and then blue on the other side. And just play with the power of the lights. Change the angle of the light. Change the opening angle of the light. Increase the like so, and then vertical placement. So now you get actually quite nicely half of the arch is red and half is blue. And you can disable the spotlights and over here. Now if you have a 3D view has the background, you can export the image with the background. And if you don't have the background image, so clear this one out and export, then you will get the PNG image without the background. So you can always put that, use another image processing software, Photoshop or whatever, and place that image on top of a real photo if you don't want to play with the photo in the 3D view over here. Nice thing about the 3D is that you can always rotate the arch or column to specific orientation and then export the image. And if you sometimes when you are especially pictures taken with mobile phone are a little bit different than standard DSLR cam because of the focal length of the lens. So over here you can also choose which is the focal length of the view in 3D. So if you have phone, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see the difference maybe. Okay, so for the phone, if you look at the arch from this end, it looks like this. And if you go to portrait, zooming out, you see that it's the view is a little bit different. So portrait, neutral, and phone. So if you zoom in to same size, you can see that the view is not the same. So this one actually gets skewed. It looks larger, clearly larger than this one. And if you take the portrait mode, they both look almost the same size, for example. So that's nice to have a realistic view of the 3D. So when you are using phone images, you typically have something that's comparable to 26 millimeters or something. So you can then place the design in the image and it should be realistic. Okay, I think we went through most of the controls now, so I will thank you for your attention and see you soon.